when you have a platform, when you are saying things that people take to heart, you don't always realize that people are listening to you seriously and that they take what you say with a heavier weight than maybe other folks. And that's a lot to think about sometimes. And I had someone message me actually the other day that said that our work helped them literally stay alive. I was like, oh my God. I mean, what do you say to that? I was at an event in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the Queer Christian Conference, and a girl came up to me and was like, I found your work when I was in the beginning of deconstructing and finding out about my sexuality, and your work saved my life.
Welcome to the Fresh Start Family Show. I'm your host, Wendy Snyder, powerful parenting educator and family life coach. And together we are going on a journey to help you expand your heart, learn new tools, and strengthen your family so you can build the family legacy of your dreams. I'm a mama too turned child and family advocate who went from being extremely stressed out back when my strong-willed little girl was a toddler to now thriving as a parent and having the honor to support thousands of families each year who choose to go from frazzled and impatient to peaceful and empowered. Each week, we will dive in with experts, thought leaders, authors, and advocates with insights to help you thrive in your parenting walk, as well as in your marriage and even in your career and faith walk too. Together, sometimes alone, sometimes with my better half and co-host Terry, we'll explore the triumphs and trials we all face as parents and share practical tools to fill our hearts, minds, and souls with inspiration. Take a deep breath and get ready to be poured into with some fresh start inspiration. Let's do this. Hello, listeners. Welcome back. I'm so happy you are here. Today, we have a great episode with Tim Whitaker from the New Evangelicals, which is a nonprofit organization that is designed to help you explore the Christian tradition and grow in your faith while also holding evangelicalism accountable. And so these episodes, when we air them, that have religion at the forefront of the conversation, I always like to remind you that we have a bit of a manifesto here at Fresh Start Family that has to do with belonging. And I want to remind everyone how much you belong here, no matter what type of faith or no faith that you adhere to. And this is a manifesto by Lindsay Letters, who is one of my favorite artists and just someone that I have really admired learning with over the years as I watch her and the way she does Christianity, and also just her art is absolutely beautiful. So let me read this manifesto to you to kick off this episode. If you are searching, saved, Black, brown, white, gay, straight, sure, unsure, older, younger, peace-filled, pain-filled, able-bodied, or differently abled, no matter how many moms or dads or divorces or kids or chromosomes or failures or successes or questions you have, no matter your gender or status or where you are from, know that you are welcome here. And I love that manifesto so much. I have it hanging on my office wall right next to where I record and am recording this podcast episode intro. And it's just really important for us here at Fresh Start Family to have a very diverse community. And so families of every religion, and like I said, no religion, are welcome here. And we do have a lot of episodes that touch on the Christian faith because I am a mama of Christian faith, and I have been very honest and public about my journey to be an evolving Christian. And so this is a term that I love. Sarah Bessey, one of my favorite authors and author of the new book, Field Notes. It is called Field Notes for the Wilderness, Practices for an Evolving Faith. It looks like this, and I know that is not the subject of our conversation today with Tim, but that book is so good, and Sarah refers to the journey that I'm familiar with, that I connect with as an evolving faith journey. And so many of you are in the same place where you are consistently looking to learn and grow and become more in alignment with what you know your soul is speaking very loudly to you about in regards to the type of Christianity that you are interested in practicing and that fully aligns with your heart and your soul and your moral compass. And today in this episode with Tim, we are talking about how we can resist hypocrisy and toxic teachings as families of faith. And it's such an important issue. And we talk about so many different things, including Tim's journey and my journey. Since I actually recorded this podcast episode with Tim, my evolving faith journey has been windy and intense at times. I recently just switched churches and found an incredible new church that I could not be happier about becoming involved with and doing volunteer work there and serving the Lord in that community. So that's really exciting. And that's a new development because it has been intense. And I know for many of you, it is an intense journey as you evolve your faith. And I know that you're going to just really enjoy this conversation with Tim today. He is doing incredible work in the world. He is very courageous and bold in the way that he shines a light on some of the dangers of things like Christian nationalism and why it's so important for folks like you and I who really relate more with a Christianity that revolves around peace and unity and bringing people together than around judgment and condemnation and fear and force and division that feels like it is just so loud right now, at least in America, when it comes to Christianity. And so for many of us, it feels a little bit like the panic button because it's just a type of religion that we have no interest in being involved in. And so to know that there is an entire community out there of folks that are just like you, if you relate to this, maybe you grew up in the church and, or specifically the fundamental or evangelical church, and you know for sure that you want to raise your kids in a different way. And it's important to you, or you're just feeling some cognitive dissonance in some of the things that are being, or some of the tones that are being preached from the pulpit, or spread in your circles in your church, and you're just starting to ask some questions and kind of figure out, is it safe for me to be at this church being a questioning or evolving faith type of person, or is it not safe? And so that's a journey. And I want you to know that you are safe here. You are safe here to ask questions. You are safe here to be in community. And you are safe to know that you belong. You belong here. And Tim's work is just incredible. You're going to love this conversation. And again, everyone's welcome here. So I know for those of you who are of Christian faith, you're going to kind of resonate a little bit more with this episode than those of you who are not of Christian faith. But even if you're Jewish or Muslim, I think it's interesting to learn about other religions and where they kind of go downhill, or things that, you know, are common amidst the lines, so to speak, of religion when it comes to stepping into things that hurt and harm and oppress people in the name of God. I think that is something that is not just unique to Christian, evangelical, or fundamental circles. There's a lot of religion that has gone wrong in the world, and there's a lot of religion that has gone right. And so I am just someone who is always going to advocate for religion that builds people up, that brings people together, that unites, that brightens the world, that, of course, helps the oppressed, the marginalized, the orphans, the widows, the poor. That's the type of religion that I'm interested in being part of and advocating for. So without further ado, I'm so excited for you to welcome Tim to the show. Enjoy this episode and let me know your thoughts. If you enjoy it, please share on social. I'm at Fresh Start Wendy. And I know Tim would love for you to tag him too. And now that we're on YouTube, remember that's a really fun place to watch our episodes now too. So you can actually have the visual of Tim and Terry and I having this really important conversation around how to resist hypocrisy and toxic teachings as a family of faith. All right, enjoy. Well, hey there, families, and welcome to a new episode of the Fresh Start Family Show. Terry and I are super pumped to have Tim Whitaker here this morning, founder of the new Evangelicals. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Welcome. Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It means a lot.
Well, we are really excited to talk about this topic today. We are going to discuss, families, how to resist toxic teachings and hypocrisy as a family of faith. And I know that sounds intense, man, but we're going to have some laughs today. We're going to definitely build belonging, because if you are someone who has just witnessed some things maybe in your church or the church world, and have started to feel like very uncomfortable feelings in your body, but not sure quite what to do and how to speak up or how to advocate for what you want. And if you're someone who loves Jesus and it's just kind of in that ground of like, how do I navigate this? I know that this episode is going to be really inspiring for you today. So, Tim, the reason, I wanted to have you on the show is because I really do just truly respect your work as a fellow. And you have to tell me, do you consider yourself a strong-willed person? So I specialize in teaching families who have at least one strong-willed kid. That's the reason I became an educator. Our little girl, who's 16 now, at 3, I thought I was going to lose my mind, because she still is. She's this amazing, God-created, strong-willed human being. We always joke that she could be an excellent lawyer. She is not underspoken. She's just amazing. And then as time has gone on, I'm like, oh, that's my mini me. She's me. But have you ever thought about yourself like that, as like a strong-willed person?
Interestingly enough, I haven't a whole lot, but people tell me that I'm very stubborn and very strong-willed. And now that I have a 3-year-old, almost 4, our firstborn, and I see how strong-willed he can be, and my mom says, "This is you as a child." I'm like, okay, I guess I was strong-willed. So I guess the answer to that is yes. But I think it's tough to perceive yourself in that way sometimes. I don't think about it like that. But if I reflect on like decisions I made and things I do, I think it's safe to say that I'm strong-willed.
Yeah. And the cool thing about strong-willed humans, and all different kinds of humans are blessings for all different reasons, right? Like, I mean, everyone's got their own contribution, but I love strong-willed humans because we just can't be silent. Like, we have these giant justice buttons, and if we become aware of something, or when our body like starts to speak to us and we get this uncomfortable feeling of like, uh-oh, something's wrong here, or this is unfair, or this is unequitable, we start to not be able to sleep. And I see it all the times in kids. It's just giant justice buttons. This is why like kids who are strong-willed are like a nightmare to play board games with when they're young, because they just are like freaks. They're competitive. They'll do anything to win. And if they sniff out like a younger sibling is trying to cheat at all, they flip out. Like, it's just but I really honor people who have a strong will and probably have a very big justice button, and are dedicating their lives to doing something with that and using their voice. And I just obviously see you do it every single day. And I know it's a really intense path. And so just thank you. Thank you for following your heart and for building this organization. Are you guys a nonprofit? Did I see that you're a nonprofit now, or no?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We became a nonprofit in September of 2021 was when we became recognized by the state and the government.
And I know that's not an easy feat. So I just know all of this on the back end is probably, I mean, it's insane the amount of work I'm sure it's taken to do this. So
I definitely did not intend to start what I am doing now. It was started out as an Instagram account, and now it's become this thing I'm just trying to make happen. It is a lot, but I do enjoy it.
Good. Okay, well, start us off with your story so listeners can get to know you a little bit, and tell us, like, how did Tim get to where you are now as the New and Evangelicals founder, and like just the courage and bravery you approach life with every day. But how did we get here? Tell us your story.
Oh gosh, bravery and courage. When on the inside, I'm fearful all the time of everything. So isn't that funny, right? How the perception can be so different from how you feel internally.
Yep.
The cliff notes of my story are: I grew up in a very conservative evangelical Christian household. I was homeschooled for 9 years. My first church I was a part of didn't have any instruments. It was a piano and hymns. And I grew up in a very loving household. My parents are still great humans, so it wasn't like abusive or something like that. They were wonderful. And I, from a very early age, made a profession of faith in Christ. I mean, that was my world. I have no memories of not being in a church. When I was 8 years old, I was handing out bulletins on Sunday morning, involved wearing my little suit and tie, which is one of the reasons why now I don't wear suit and ties ever, because I hate them so much still at age 35. Yeah. So that was my life. I got involved with parachurch organizations. I did missions work. I planted churches. I was a professional drummer in the worship space for a little bit. I still play professionally today outside of the church. And everything about my belief system was always true north on just trying to follow Jesus and be a better Christian. That was always the motive for my life from like age 13 when I kind of owned my faith, so to speak, onward.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, in between here, but kind of jumping ahead a bit, long story short, when I was 18, I started asking questions about how do we organize as a church? What does it mean to be a church? I had some really good friends in that space who were able to think through those things with me, very much an amateur theologian type, in my basement with a whiteboard and some friends, just ideating over what could church be? How do we do it better? And I was reading a lot of influential books that were changing my perspective, but always rooted in because I want to be a better Christian. And then in 2016, honestly, with Trump, that was kind of the real smelling salt moment for me where I thought to myself, okay, I've seen some issues before. I think I'm a little more moderate than maybe some of my friends, but that's all fine. But this Trump thing just seems to be another level of I don't understand how we reconcile these very different and competing values. On one hand, I was raised by people who were very clear that God demands a certain sexual ethic from me. Essentially don't touch yourself or anyone until you're married. That was kind of the rule, Yeah. And if you do any of those things, you could be disqualified from ministry, and God, isn't happy about that, but there's forgiveness, but it's still the Holy Spirit's convicting you and, that kind of thing. And so I go from, okay, I did that, what you wanted me to do, to, oh, you're mad at me now because I can't vote for the guy on the cover of Playboy magazine, the guy who's on his third marriage, the guy who really embodies as a man everything you taught me men are never to be. Right? Men don't lie. Men have integrity. Men treat women with respect. Men, in fill in the blank here. And Trump really, from a very early on journey, embodied the antithesis of all that stuff. And so to me, it wasn't
very clearly was fine with grabbing pussies.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you said this is a family show, so I don't want to say it, but
I know
now that you said it, I guess we can say it.
In the intro, I'll make sure that listeners know if the kids are around to put your AirPods in, because I don't want this, I want this to be, we can talk clearly, openly. But yeah, that was, I'm with you. My heart was like, what is happening?
Exactly. And so that was the beginning of going, something really stinks in this room of Christianity that I'm in. And then I saw the response to Black Lives Matter. I saw the response to COVID. I'm still in the church through all of this, and I'm serving, and I love it. What I was doing in my previous church, I loved. I'm a professional musician. We're doing high-end worship. We have the full production. I have great friends. So I'm there, but I'm also watching this from afar going, I don't understand. Like, how is loving your neighbor equating to don't wear a mask? Tyranny. I couldn't navigate. I couldn't reconcile those two things. So eventually in October of 2020, that's when I got the thought, we need like a new evangelical movement. And that's when I thought the term new evangelicals. I was scared to start it. I was really hesitant to do anything with the name. Eventually someone convinced me and said, dude, just go on Instagram and start it. Like, who cares if you fail? So, the name, the new evangelicals, is so audacious. Like, it's such a big term. Like, we're the new, who's we in this conversation? Like, some guy on an Instagram account. So I eventually started asking questions. People found it. We discovered deconstruction, evangelical movement, and we kind of exploded. And now we're a nonprofit. I do this work full time.
Oh, amazing. And in the midst of that, though, there was a season that I really relate to your story because I kind of experienced a little bit of this last spring when I released a podcast episode about what it means to be an LGBTQ plus affirming family with my friend Meredith Miller. But in the midst of that, you were on staff, right? And wasn't there part of your story that when they started learning about what you were building and exploring and the questions you were asking as you were continuing to deepen your faith in Jesus, that wasn't there like an ultimatum gave? Do I remember that right about your story, that you were like, they were like, bro, you gotta stop or go?
Yeah, I was never on staff ever at any church. Okay. I was always a full-time volunteer, which was every pastor's dream. I was that guy, can we call Tim for this? And by the way, I want to emphasize, because it's not always the same story. For me, it was very much a willingness. I loved doing it. Everything I did at the church as volunteer, I was happy to do.
Cool.
But yeah, even for my church, being a volunteer drummer, not even on staff, but asking these questions online, eventually got to a point where in April of 2021, my senior pastor, in a very nice way, but regardless, gave me the ultimatum, and said, hey, you can either stop serving with us as a drummer, or you can stop what you're doing online. I could still serve in other capacities, like, greeter team or something. I could still tithe, of course, but I couldn't do what I was known for doing. And the people that I built relationships with, I couldn't do that with them anymore if I kept doing the work I was doing online. So that's when I shook the pastor's hand and said thank you, and I resigned on the spot. And then within a few months, I lost about 90% of those connections that I built over 6 years. I mean, very deep ones. I wasn't just, people often think that folks who deconstruct were like spectators, but I found the opposite to be true. We were usually the ones who were most involved. Our whole life revolved around the church. We had our best friends through the church. We spent a lot of intimate moments with those people, a lot of tears, a lot of encouragement, a lot of love. And so within a few months, all of those relationships, minus about 4 or 5 of them, completely evaporated.
Families, let's be honest for a minute. Sometimes it can feel so hard to get your kids to just do what they're told. And if you are raising a strong-willed child, then it feels doubly hard sometimes. And so I want you to know that you're not alone. We have an easy solution for you. It's called our Firm and Kind Parenting Blueprint, and it is just $27. It is one of our easiest programs to finish, our most affordable program that we offer here at Fresh Start Family, where in just 1 hour, you can learn our magical 4-step process to setting firm limits and following through with consistency, but doing it from an angle of connection versus force. And so if you are like so many parents, you may be currently relying on threats, usually involving technology or candy or TV time. And I want you to know that there is simple tweaks that you can change that will help you get your kids to cooperate faster and do it in a way where you truly feel more deeply connected to them, less annoyed, less frustrated, and just more joyful and confident as a parent. So you can head to freshstartfamilyonline.com/firm and kind, or if it's easier just to pop me over a DM on Instagram, I'm at FreshStartWendy. Just send me the word blueprint in a DM and I will take good care of you. I'll send you the link so you can learn more about this easy to finish, easy to implement program called our Firm and Kind Parenting Blueprint. And we can't wait for you to get started. Enjoy.
I think, this represents something that I has been going on for so long. I think probably, since Jesus was walking, the earth, was like, there's having a relationship with God, loving Jesus, like you said, like he's your North Star. But then there's the world, and this idea that the world, whether it be through your own church, through the media or anything, is often just trying to just kind of take away from what the pure intention is just to have a genuine relationship with God and to be able to ask questions and to be able to, like you said, like see, like, is this of the world? You used the example of, just kind of politics and culture as a whole the last several years. Is like, when you find that you can actually ask questions safely, I mean, that's a strange place to operate from when you're just trying to understand and have a closer relationship to Jesus, and just to be able to, like, oh, sorry, I'm not allowed to ask a question. That must have been very shocking for you. I mean, hearing like how close you were with all of these people, and I mean, that was your whole upbringing.
Yeah, I mean, there are 2 parts to that. I in my experience, and this is, everyone has a different story here, but my experience was that my churches were not opposed to the questions. They were opposed to different answers, right? So it was kind of like a trick question. It was like, yeah, let's talk about hell. But in their back pocket, they have like the answer already, and their goal is to lead you there. And I think I was at a point where I was starting to entertain different answers to the questions. Is being
Great question, yeah.
Great question, Tim. Yes. Well, what if I say I'm not so sure? Oh, well, now you're going a bridge too far, right? And so I think that was what got people nervous. I got some accusations that, the youths were under attack, maybe by some of my language, and people were talking about what I was saying online. It was problematic because my conclusions, or the fact that I was at the time even entertaining different conclusions, was just too extreme. And by extreme, I mean, can we accept queer people for who they are? I mean, that's what we're talking about here. I'm not talking about, did Christ really rise again from the dead? I mean, I understand how a church might get worried about that because it's pretty commonly held belief. But it was about like, oh, can queer people still be Christian?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know, too far.
And volunteer and play in the band.
Yeah, exactly. And be fully included, right, in leadership and in volunteer roles. It was really painful to lose those people. I'm a very relational person. I'm a type 6 on the Enneagram. Loyalty is a core value of mine. I have a very hard time losing friendships. I tend to pride myself that I'm not the one who leaves, And so to lose, I mean, it's a little more complicated because in this particular scenario, not only was I heavily involved with my church, but we were part of, we created this like multi-church worship night event in our local area that was attracting dozens of churches, and we were all networked with each other. So if a church down the street needed a guitarist, we would lend one over, and vice versa, because we were all behind the scenes very close as friends. So I didn't just lose like my church, my local church. I lost those friendships, but then I lost all the other networking relationships I made with people who I spent a lot of time with playing gigs and doing worship stuff and dreaming about the future. And it was really painful, to be in that spot where you're like, I don't understand. I can make room for you. Like, I'm not asking you to change your views on this. I'm not talking about believe to kids at church, I get it. We see things differently here. But for some reason, I can make room, but you can't make room for me, even though I've been clear that I'm not here to be a threat. I'm not trying to overthrow leadership. I don't want to be a leader. I'm happy to drum. But even that was a bridge too far.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I am like, the more I get older, the more I realize how much of an empath I really am. And so it's funny in my body right now, how much like sorrow and grief and sadness I have because of this story that I'm hearing. And we're going to get to like the good part in a minute here, families, because I'm telling you, to live a life where you're no longer suppressing or hiding or people pleasing feels so good. And that is on the other side when you like listen to yourself and just follow through. We'll get there. But I can just so relate to your story because it's like very different but similar thing. Like I mentioned, when I started to question some things in my faith, specifically, like, what does it look like to be an affirming LGBTQ plus family? And really, like, I didn't grow up in the church. And so I didn't have this like huge fear mechanism like baked into me. Like, I feel like so many people who grew up in like deep evangelical circles did. So when I went to like have this conversation and started doing Bible studies to like explore the scriptures and really learn, like, I really wasn't, it was just like another thing that I was doing to like explore my faith. And then interviewed my friend Meredith, had her on the show. She wrote this beautiful book called Woven, Nurturing a Faith in Your Child They Don't Have to Heal From. You might know Meredith's work. And it was just so beautiful. And I released it into the world, and it was like the biggest shock I've ever experienced in my life. We lost so many people like in 10 minutes, and the daggers that came our way were so gnarly, and the name calling. And then later we went on and like we switched churches, and I went to host a small group, and it was like, oh my gosh, we've heard that you've had this conversation. And it was like, at one point, it turned out that they were going to allow me to have the small group, which thank God. I'm so excited to be someone that is advocating in the space and being welcomed, and it all worked out. But for a moment, we thought that I wasn't going to be allowed. And the grieving and the sorrow that I had, I remember on this park bench by the ocean one day, was just so intense. And I was just like, how is this happening? Like, how is this our faith? Like, I'm a woman who dedicates my life to helping families and ending painful generational cycles and the bullshit toxic teachings of corporal punishment as godly in the church. And yet, like, I'm on the table? Like, I'm on the, what is it called? The chopping block?
And we're not even living the lifestyle that's even in question. So then you start to think, you're like, how much more intense must it be for
That community.
for that community? We're like,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
it's so you're just like, wow, you just get a kind of a taste of it there, and it's deep. I mean, for people who are showing up, just wanting to deepen their relationship with Christ, and then, like I was saying, then the world gets in the way. It's like the debate and their fear, because that's where I just keep saying, they're scared. What are they scared of? They're scared. What are they? It just seems like just everything is operating either out of fear or holding fear over you. It's like this kind of this unspoken battle that's happening. It's like, we can't do that because we're scared of this, or hey, let's make them scared of this so that they don't talk about this. It's like this kind of underlying kind of a tone, I think, that's just held in so much of society, especially in these instances.
And my question for you, Tim, is I want to hear from you, is like, on the other side, after going through all that, which I can just feel it in my body. I'm like, that one season in particular was so full of grief and sadness, but also what was crazy cool was that it strengthened my relationship with Christ so deeply. It connected me so much more with the LGBTQ plus community. I now had a glimpse into understanding the pain that they must experience on a daily freaking basis for hundreds of years. And I just, like, my faith just got so much deeper and real and together as a family, like watching Terry support me through that. And my kids are 13 and 16 now, and they were just like ride or die. They were like, Mom, we will bounce, if we will go anywhere. They just, like, we stood for something. And it just, like, was so freeing, but yet freaking gnarly. So my question for you is, you've been doing this, you started 2016, starting having these conversations, like not suppressing your voice, but openly discussing why you felt like there was hypocrisy or whatever it may be. And now here we are, 2024. How has it been freeing for you? Has it deepened your relationship with Christ? And, like, as a father to children now, like, I know that's 3 questions, but, like, what's on the other side? Because I want to inspire people. I want people to understand that this is an episode about courage and bravery and faith, and, like, knowing that you belong. Like, and you may feel like you're, like, meh in your circles, that if there's unhealthy things happening, but also there's this whole community where you belong and you are welcome and you are honored as a Christ follower just as you are. So could you answer that very deep 3-fold question?
Yeah. I could never go back. It's like, there are some people who are wired, friends of mine who I love. I mean, we're good friends, who are like, I don't think about these things that deeply. I am cool at my church. I go, I do my thing. I believe, I play my part, I go home. Okay. Yeah. I've just never been wired that way. Like, I want the deeper conversation. I want to explore. I'm a curious person. And one thing that my dad really instilled in me very young is integrity. I don't even think he knows how much he instilled that core value into me. Just like, my dad was almost always, I mean, you couldn't ask for a more consistent human. The same person at church that he was at home, on the job, etc. Obviously, when he's a blue collar worker, so when your job is going to shit, you get angry. That's typical for anyone in that field. Yeah. But he was he wasn't like an angry person, He was a very consistent person. And he would tell me, because he's more conservative, when I was a kid, I hate paying taxes. I hate it. But you know what? Like, we have to do the right thing, even though I hate it, and that just, like, stood with me of, like, yeah. And so I take a lot of that into the work I do. And for me, 2016 was that moment of, like, I can't move from this, guys. Like, I'm sorry. I know I can't bend my conviction of a man who likes to grab women by the crotch. and trying to justify why somehow that man's like fit to lead the country. Sorry. Now, at the same time, at that point in my life, I couldn't vote for a Democrat. I wasn't there yet. So I voted a third party out of principle. And certainly there's room for all those discussions. It gets complicated there. But on the other side of it, it was painful, but I'm glad I did it. But it's painful. Like, one of the biggest and most difficult challenges still, and I have no good answer to this. Maybe this is the most discouraging part of the conversation, is that people are looking for embodied community because they lost their church. And I know how difficult it is to find people who can relate to your previous experience and also be where you're at, right? Maybe you make new friends who have no church context and can't really understand and empathize with that culture that you were brought up in, and they don't get the little inside jokes you might drop. Or you have friends who are still inside that circle who kind of treat you weird. Hey, friend, how you doing? Oh, God's good. I'm doing great. It's like you can just tell. It's like we're 1 inch beneath the surface. If we go one inch deeper, we're gonna explode because of my views on something that you just can't stand, right? So I understand that part, and we're fortunate. I do have some good friends in my life who I've had for a long time who have made room, and I've made room for them. We get along great, but they're rare. And also, I'm 35. I'm parenting is new to me, but I'm realizing how much that changes how available you are for those connections with friends. I'm not 18 anymore, so there's a lot of changes happening. But I couldn't trade it. The work I'm doing now. And I don't use spiritual language a whole lot these days. I'm still navigating my own spirituality, but I do feel like it's my calling. I feel like this is what I was called to do in some weird sense. And it's hard being on this side of the screen, like you guys, I'm sure, as content creators. You don't know your impact. Are we making a difference? Is anyone listening to this? Do I just sound like a big idiot? You just think about all those self-doubting moments, right? Of like, are we making a difference? And if you're not careful, you can live and die by numbers and downloads. But then you get these messages, right? Oh my God, I just found your work. It has saved my life. And you're like, okay, well, maybe this is why it's worth it. So I hope that answers the question, but I could never go back. I feel so much more free to really explore all of the rooms of the Christian tradition, not just the basement I was brought up in. And it came at cost. It cost me something. It cost a lot of relationships that I thought I'd be doing life with for a long time, maybe even forever. So that was painful, but I could never go back.
Oh, I'm just looking up this book. There's a book called The Regrets of the Dying. Have you ever heard of this book? It's written by a chick who was I want to say she was a hospice nurse, Bronnie Ware. Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. I'm pretty sure this is the one. If it's not, it's a similar book, but she talks about how she does all these studies and is with people on their deathbed, hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of people. And the biggest regret that people have when they die, universally, is that they didn't live a life true to themselves. And that's what I think of when you're doing this kind of stuff. It's like, and if you're listening and you're like, dude, my church is great. Like, there are people that are really in healthy churches. Like, I look at my friends that are in Episcopalian churches and I'm like, yes, like, or my one of my employees is a Greek Orthodox, and she's in a Greek Orthodox church, and her dad was a priest, and she's just like, Wendy, we don't have this weirdness, right? Like, so if you're in it, but if you're not and you're questioning but you are living true to like what you feel called to do in that small, still voice that so many of us equate with God's calling on our life, like, it's freaking worth it, because to not have that regret when you die, I think is amazing, and such a way to live for our children, to let them know that, like, you are safe to question. You are safe. A true faith, in my opinion, does not involve force. It does not involve pressure. It involves support and like just help, allowing someone to get there, like when they're ready, when themselves, God meets them where they are, all that stuff. So I love it. And I think it's a different journey for everyone, right? Like, I think most of the listeners here, as they're on their journey to Him, I think that the way it starts for most of my listeners, if I had to guess, they're similar to me, where you have kids and you're in the classic church system. We were at the same church for like 12 years. We loved it there. They air quotes allowed me, but like they blessed me with the opportunity to teach there for a long time. And in the evangelical church, like to be a teacher of what I teach, which is very not in line with all these twisted, toxic books that are touted as godly in the Christian world, it was a big deal. We loved it there, right? But the more and more I got, like my ears started to go up to the circles within and without, like externally and internally, that were still preaching this like doctrine of godly punishment, like, and that if you didn't hit your kids when they misbehaved, that you were actually,
or even before that, there was like, remember how many people we came to this like, oh, my kid's this old, time to start whooping them.
Yeah.
It was like not even, it was like some sort of like rite of passage that had to happen. Not, it wasn't like a, if they misbehave.
Yeah. And I have students who they are like, again, really in their church and love Jesus so much. And they get to a place where they're starting to explore what compassionate discipline, which is what we teach, versus punishment looks like. And they literally get called into meetings, and the pastor and his wife, or, you know, the Bible study women are very concerned because, like, there was we have an episode with my friend Christina Dronin, who runs this big group, Gentle Christian Parenting, and we released an episode called Parenting with the Fruits of the Spirit, and it was one of the most beautiful, amazing episodes. Just boom, like that's what we all want as parents, right? Like self-control, gentleness, like all the things, compassion, and they called her in. And because she had said, hey, you guys should listen to this podcast episode. It's so good. It's with my mentor, Wendy. And they were like, we need to call a meeting because we are scared that you are like in like satanic circles. And it's just like, what in the world is happening here? But the more, I think a lot of families, that's their first dip in the water of like starting to ask questions around this, and then realizing they're actually not safe. They're not safe.
Yeah.
And so then that sparks like, oh, that's weird. Why would I be getting this message that I have to hit my kids? And there's all these like publications and work out there and science and neuroscience to prove that I don't have to hit my kids to be a godly parent, and that it's super whack, toxic, outdated, weird ass teaching. But yet I am being questioned and put on the chopping block and looked at like I'm some weird outsider who's in satanic circles. Like that's genuinely happening for a lot of people in this community. And then there's a lot of people who just kind of suppress it and hide it. And so then they're like going to church, and they're like, they know that from the pulpit, it's being preached sometimes, or in the small groups, but yet they kind of just remain quiet about it. But there's all these levels, right? But for our community, Tim, that's kind of where it starts, the questioning. And I want this episode to just be one that it's like, I know we're talking about the gnarliness and the pain and the sorrow and all this stuff that comes when you live this life, but it's also, again, so freeing. And I just know that I'm going to like be high-fiving Terry on my deathbed one day and being like, we didn't buy into the cultural toxic bullshit that we had to like hurt, harm, and humiliate our children into submission. Like, we did it, babe. We resisted that teaching. And then, of course, that opened up this beautiful box of like feeling safe, that it is safe to be a Christian who has questions, who affirms the queer community, and still is a Christian, and like it's safe. I am safe. Terry is safe. My children are safe. You are safe. Like, I've just been doing so much nervous system regulation work lately, and it's like, it's the ticket to understand that we are safe. So if you have gotten that message that you are not safe to question, just know that that's not truth. You are safe. And even if it takes finding a new church or advocating, like that's where I am right now. Like, I feel better in my body as I keep showing up and advocating. Like, there are days when I just want to retreat and be like, never mind, I'm not going to host a small group. But then I feel that still small voice that's like, no, Wendy, I want you to stay present. I want you to stay present. I just want you to advocate. I just want you to be you. I don't want you to jam anything down people's throats. But when the question comes up, I don't want you to shy away. I want you to just speak. Just speak and hold the space and have the conversations. And I'm like, okay. But that's where I'm at, right? And I hope a lot of people, if you feel that calling to stay and then be the advocate, right? Who brings in the healthy Christian parenting to the table, or be the advocate that has the affirming conversations, right? Like, or whatever it may be. Oh yeah, purity culture. Like that's a whole nother one, right? That I know like my friend Sheila Ray Gregoire does such amazing work around. But yeah, so again, the tone is there is such lightness, light and freedom on this side that is unmatched, because I believe that living any type of life of suppression or silence will fuck with you. Parents, have you grabbed my free resource called Setting Strong Limits Cheat Sheet, where I will teach you the exact 4 steps I teach inside our signature Firm and Kind Parenting Blueprint program, but just kind of the bird's eye view, so to speak, so you can peek into this process and learn more about why it works so well to influence kids, especially strong-willed ones. This free Setting Limits Cheat Sheet comes with a beautiful printable you can hang on your fridge or keep inside your car to help you get through all the drama and highs and lows that come with normal parenthood. And you can get a copy by either shooting me a DM on Instagram. I'm at Fresh Start Wendy with the word limits, or you can head to freshstartfamilyonline.com/limits now. And if it's easier and you're watching this on YouTube, you can click below in the pinned comment or the show description to get easy access to this free resource. Enjoy.
It's very interesting to me, like how complicated we as humans make things, and everything becomes some sort of a debate, and everybody's very, very fearful of not being on the same page as other people. I mean, my faith journey, the more I get to know Jesus, the more I feel like I know him, and I feel like he wouldn't be down with all of these things that we're wrestling with, So I mean, it's like, I made Wendy this mug, Tim. It said, Jesus didn't whoop kids. Pretty sure that's a fact.
Yeah.
So that. I just kind of go back.
But he never said that. He never said that, Terry.
Yes,
that's true.
Yeah, that's true. But I just, so I think I go to like, I continually try to make things simpler and more pure, where I feel like the world tries to make things more complicated and more divisive and divides people. And then I see that as that's the work of the enemy. So I'm just like, hey, I feel like it's so much of the people who are trying to, go one way are actually still tangled up into something that all of us don't, always realize that we're tangled up in. So, yeah, it's just, this again, like Wendy said, I mean, this isn't like a take down the church, leave your church episode. Far from it. It's like, show up. We just want, everybody to feel safe to show up and be themselves, and to have, to not be scared,
Yeah. No, 100%,
and that
100%.
And that's, but a lot of that started with, I mean, similar kind of mindset in our parenting walk, and why Fresh Start Family exists too. Put the faith side aside, it was just like, we didn't feel like we wanted our kids to be scared of us. We didn't want to just do things just because we said so, and then have them do things for us just because we said so, and to have this fear enforced thing. So I think there's a lot of similar themes that go on, both on the parenting subject and of just the this subject of, faith and the church. It's like, we just want to remove that. And I feel like if people really could understand that is a common ground, would you agree, people that we're trying to talk to, even if we don't agree on um, policies of who to vote for, and down to the nth degree, would you agree that removing fear from relationships is a goal that we could all go for? Would you agree that we're all trying to go for being more like Jesus, whose characteristics are all listed here? Like I feel like, it's so easy to get tangled up into all of the things that would divide instead of like the unifying things, and then agree too that like, hey, gosh, we're not going to figure it all out here.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're on a trajectory for like a 1,000,000-year long argument if we want to just try to say that we're going to like nod our head and high five on every single last thing here. But can we agree on this and operate from there, and then be able to ask ourselves questions and not feel like anybody's going to be ostracized, removed, or shamed for it? So yeah.
And that's why I just want to like platform your work so much, Tim, because I think once you go through this and it feels so scary and weird and like people are going to find out that you're practicing conscious parenting, and it's like so scary, right? And then you start to relax a little bit, and then you start to see how much you're surrounded with people that are living life and they're safe and they're healthy and they're good. And so like back that time when I had like started to get that itch to explore the affirming conversation, to study the scriptures, to make my own decision and release that podcast episode, and felt like I kind of lost so much, that's when God like introduced me to so many new people. And like the list is profound. Like I found Sarah Bessie, Kate Bowler, Carlos Whitaker, who was on our show. I think wasn't Carlos on yours?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Episode 90 of the Fresh Start Family Show. Carlos Whitaker is such a great, like, helps us have both sides in the circle and feel safe, right? Like we are safe to be together and all love Christ. Sharon McMahon, I found that year, Jen Hatmaker, and the transition she's gone through has been so beautiful to witness. I obviously met my friend Meredith Miller, author of Woven, Mary Van Geffen, who's also a positive parenting educator and just so outspoken about her affirming stance. Kayla Craig, who is just so beautiful and it lives the type of Christian life that I want to live. Shauna Niequist, the author, the amazing Episcopalian priest Gene Robinson. He has added so much to my life as far as like just living the example of what it looks like to be fully authentically you and love Jesus. Naked Pastor David Hayward was on our show, episode 151. Sheila Gregoire was on our podcast. Brian Recker, who was just so much fun. I will say that on my Instagram, obviously I try to put out more than I consume, but there are a few people that I'm like, yay, new stories. And it's you and Brian and my friend Mary Van Geffen, who makes me laugh. And I know will always be outspoken about her faith stance. I do enjoy Carlos' stories too, but you're up there. So it feels so good once you start to realize that like, oh, you're not going to have to like leave and never have a family again. Like, no, there's all these people that are like willing and surrounding you, and they may be all across the world and not like next to you in your town, but they're there. Has that been cool for you to like expand your community, Tim, through your work?
Yeah, it's been really cool. Yeah, I know the names you're talking about. Brian's become a good friend. Carlos Whitaker's become a good friend. It is, yeah, it's been great meeting, and also just meeting people, like just people who aren't creators, people who are consumers, right? People who are DMing you and who are sharing. There's some people that I talk to almost every day in my DMs now, and I love that. It's great, and it does build a sense of connectedness, We have a private Facebook group of over 7,000 people, and people have connected through that, and so it's been really great meeting. All kinds of maybe folks I look up to, like Shane Claiborne has become a really good friend, and his book changed my life when I was 18. So it's been great being able to have that relationship. And Pete Enns has become a good friend. And it's like, wow, like this is just really cool being able to meet people who take this stuff really seriously. And because they take these things so seriously, they've actually left maybe their fundamentalism behind, right? Because they found it untenable. But in search of something better, they found greener pastures that have given them a more nuanced way of understanding the world that is hopefully fueled by love, which I think is just so wonderful.
That's awesome. I love it.
What are some of the, I know you mentioned earlier, like how, you'll get a DM every once in a while, or maybe it's not every once in a while, maybe it's all the time of, this changed my life, or I'm glad I found you. But like, once you stepped out boldly and kind of, have done what you've been doing the last few years, like there had to have been some big surprises. Like, what are some of the big surprises that you just never saw coming?
Becoming friends with Andy Stanley, that was a surprise I never saw coming.
Yeah, I don't know who is Andy Stanley. We don't know Andy.
He's one of the biggest megachurch pastors to exist today. North Point Church is like 45,000 strong, and he DM'd me on Twitter one time and was like, "Let's talk." So I elevated one of his. He had a really good speech on being gay and being in the church that like shocked me in a good way. And so I highlighted it, and it went like in our circles, it went viral. It did a couple million views. And so he DM'd me and said, "Let's talk." I said, "Hey, I'll fly out to you." I said, "Great."
Nice.
So I flew out to him in May of last year, and we spent the weekend together and became friends. And I met him a few other times since then. That's something that's been pretty shocking for me. Is like, what am I doing? Like talking to someone who like is in this position, who's also doing great work, by the way. Like he really is.
Cool.
At first I was real leery, like mega church pastor, and it turns out he's the real deal. But I think for me personally, what has been most shocking in general is just the people I've been able to meet and the things I've been able to do, and the fact that we're helping people. I mean, those are just really, they're important things. It's a huge responsibility, right? Because when you have a platform, when you are saying things that people take to heart, you don't always realize that people are listening to you seriously, and that they take what you say with a heavier weight than maybe other folks. And that's a lot to think about sometimes. And I had someone message me actually the other day that said that our work helped them literally stay alive. I was like, oh my God. I mean, what do you say to that? I was at an event in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the Queer Christian Conference, and a girl came up to me and was like, I found your work when I was in the beginning of deconstructing and finding out about my sexuality, and your work saved my life. And she's like crying, and then I'm crying. I'm just like, oh my God. So those kinds of conversations have just been like really impactful for me, and a good reminder to keep going. Because frankly, and I'm just being blunt and honest, like I truly struggle with the, sense of like, are we actually doing good work? I really do. And I don't think people understand how common that is in the creator world. Like, this is just real talk, but it's very weird being in a headspace where you see that your Instagram account has 92,000 followers and you think, oh, that's just like not enough. Like, are we really doing the impact? Am I really doing the work? I didn't grow that many followers today. I'm failing as a creator. I mean, this is, when you say it out loud, it does, people are probably laughing like that's ridiculous, and I totally get it. But like when you're in it all the time and you're always striving to hopefully put out content that people resonate with, and then these metrics that tell you if that's true or not are either going down or they're stagnating or they're whatever, you just kind of go like, are we losing it? Am I losing the edge? Like, are we still relevant? And these are just things that we have to, I think, on this side of the screen, have to wrestle with and figure out ways to recalibrate our nervous system, right? From that feeling of fear again, of like, oh, I'm fearful that I'm fearful that I've overstayed my welcome, or I'm fearful that whatever I've said is now redundant and not necessarily helpful anymore, or whatever it could be. And recalibrating that to, I am safe, and that people will tell us all the time that our organization is doing good work, and I should be able to rest in that instead of thinking about like what's next, So there is that side of this that's kind of maybe the shadow side of doing work that I've dreamed of doing for a living. I mean, I podcast and make content and talk to people all day. It's what a dream, and read books. But man, sometimes there's a lot of times where it doesn't feel that way. You know what I mean?
Dude, I so freaking get it. It is such a weird path, but as a life coach who like helps people heal for a living, it makes sense to me, right? Like the shame side of it that we might call like fear, right? Like scared of not being enough, scared of being too much. Like a lot of it is just shame reduction work that I think when you live out your calling or courageously live life, like God calls you into like more and more healing. If you follow that path and do the work through whatever it is, therapy or group work, whatever it may be, like a lot of times it's what opens, I think, the Pandora's box to like finally shedding more and more shame every single year that, in my opinion, comes from a lot of the times the way we were raised, especially in the church. Like if you do something wrong, there's danger. If you're not perfect, there's danger. If you do it good and get 1.3 million views, like I had a reel go viral last week and it was like, that's good. Then you're loved. Then you're accepted. And it's like, but if you do it bad, then you're going to get put in the closet. And I'm very disappointed in you. And so is God. Like, it's just so effed up. Like, of course we struggle with shame and fear of not being loved. And like when we start like really putting ourselves out there, but I can't say enough, like the feeling of courage and bravery, which only comes to a human being after you feel scared as hell, that feeling to me trumps fear. Like I will feel scared all day long if I get to live a life where I'm like that feeling, that high five at the end of Terry and I's life where I'm just like, yes, we did it. Like we did not let fear hold us back. We lived the life that is true to us and raised our kids in a way that like really was like who we are, you know? So.
And just operated on a daily basis from a standpoint that you genuinely care and want people to live, no matter what their lifestyle is, no matter what, like, you know, what you just shared about somebody's, you know, saying, you know, you saved my life. You know, it's like, debate all you want about people's lifestyle or this, that, the other, but like, you know, I think, you know, Wendy and I have talked about, it's like, I just want these people to be alive. I don't want to be a part of a force that might want them to exit this world. And there's too much of that darkness for me to even want to be on the wrong side of that. So I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers. I don't know how it perfectly weaves into this or that, but I do know that I want people here. I want them alive. I want them to feel loved. I don't have to agree with what everybody does. It may be totally different than the lifestyle that I live or whatever, but like, I just want them here.
Right.
You know, I think it's I think if you just operate from that standpoint, you're going to continue to learn. You're going to continue to have everybody lives another day to be able to have the conversation and not feel like it's, you know, so final. It's like, you know, building up walls and then just, you know, every person just figure it out on your own. I mean,
you don't have to leave it there. There is safety in like remaining in friendships. Like as our Carlos Whitaker episode was so well dialed on, like it's like it is possible to like just stay and not stay, but like keep having the conversations and be safe. Tim, we live in North San Diego, California. So we're at the beach in San Diego, small like surf town in Encinitas, California. We lost 2 effing teenagers in the last 2 weeks to suicide. 2 in our town.
Just at our daughter's high school alone. Yeah.
2 in 2 weeks. Like, as Terry said, like, let's just do the work it takes to like keep people alive and help people feel loved and let that be the priority. So I just, I don't know their situation, but I just think about them every day and, you know, just how much could change in the church to help people feel safe and give them hope. And I just know that your work is doing that. As scary as it is, as much work as it is, you are doing that every single day. So I just pray that this conversation and that affirmation like just fills you up, Tim, because it's just your work is so important. So please let listeners know, where can they come support you? Because I know running a nonprofit like this, you've been doing a big campaign to get the funding that you need to create this this help that the world needs. And as we said, maybe I didn't at the beginning, but it's like our purpose is not to take the church down, but to actually build it up and to advocate and to create health in the church. And yes, remove the things that are poison or toxins or mold. And like, yeah, let's, that's actually horrible language because I don't like that when that's used by the other side. So erase that. But remove the things that are unhealthy and like, let's build it up, right? And I think that's the work that you're doing, even though it's very outspoken and it's intense. Like, I just love it. You go head into it. But where can listeners come find you and support you? And what do you need most right now at the New Evangelicals?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Anywhere that the New Evangelicals name is online is us. So we're on TikTok, Instagram, podcast, Facebook. We have a website where you can sign up for free and get access to our private Facebook community. And we have a community map. You can see who's in your area and DM them. That's all available. We do Zoom groups, all kinds of stuff. The biggest need right now as a nonprofit is definitely funding. We're really trying to evolve our content into be able to build the team, to really create a more strategic coalition of voices that's amplifying better ways forward in our faith. And so donations make that possible. So you can go to our Instagram. There's a link there. You can go to our website and donate there. Of course, all donations are tax deductible in the U.S., which is great. But yeah, that's quite literally the biggest need. Most of our support is small monthly donations. So we have about 560 people who donate every month to make this work possible. So any small amount, like, $10 a month, $15 a month, really helps us long term because it gives us coals to the fire that we're able to use to then plan future content. What's our budget we can work within? Who can we hire? Who can't we hire, et cetera.
I love it. And it's fantastic you did the extra work to become the nonprofit, because then businesses, we are able to write off our donations, right? Like,
that's right.
It was a shock to my system a few years ago when I was like, all my donations, I realized were not tax deductible because they were like to, like, our friend has a ministry in the Philippines. And I was like, no, it's not, but it's tax deductible when you're a nonprofit. So,
it is.
And then I think a lot of people start to struggle with the tithing for their church because they're like, oh, it's hard to like support this when I've had the conversations, I've advocated, and they won't replace the books in the nursery or they won't budge.
Right.
And so, you can consider this as a wonderful way to advance, the kingdom and the ministry of Tim and doing good work in the world and just reallocating some money. And like Tim said, it's amazing what a million people can do with a small amount versus thinking that it has to be this big amount by, a few. So awesome. Okay. Exactly. And they go to the website for more information.
Website
right?
Or our Instagram, anywhere. And that's great.
Yeah. Awesome. Tim, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
It's great.
Yeah.
And we can cut this, but I need a 30-second drum corner here. You said you're playing music right now. What kind of music are you playing? Are you in a band? Tell me.
Yeah, I actually have a gig tonight. I'm playing Atlantic City. I'm playing Ocean's Casino. I play in a cover band in New Jersey.
What kind of music?
It's like top 40 cover stuff. So, whatever's in the radio. It could be Tom Petty. It could be some 80s, but could be some more current stuff. But yeah, I play tonight. I play tomorrow. And then in the summer, we do like 35 to 50 gigs. It's pretty busy. So
very cool. Awesome. Yeah, we got drum sets on the other side of this wall here. Our daughter's a drummer. So
yeah.
Oh, love that. That's great.
Yeah, we're a big heavy metal family, and she's a metal drummer. She's amazing. And we actually have 2 drum sets because they Daddy and her keep saying that she's going to start these like drum lessons. She did a little bit, but I'm like,
somebody doesn't like having 2 drum sets.
Our garage is like 5.
She wants to go in there and dance around in the area that the second drum set is, I guess.
We have hilarious. 2 e-bikes, a Peloton, 2 drum sets, a washer and dryer, all in a half garage because the other half is...
Listeners, this is exactly what you wanted to hear. Wendy and I argue over the second half of our garage and what should be in there or not.
I know. But hey, we love that you're a drummer.
Everybody drop your vote. Keep the drums. Don't keep the drums.
Well, I vote to keep the drums. So
thank you. Thanks, Tim. You heard it here.
One drum.
You heard it here. We're wrapping, and thank you. Good afternoon. Good night.
I am good for one drum set. Just the two is intense, but...
You heard it. Tim wants 2 drum sets. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well,
All right.
yeah, families, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Tim, you rock. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Listeners, go find Tim in all the places and consider doing a little monthly donation. It would help so much.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it. See you later.
All right. That's a wrap. You made it to the end of a value-packed Fresh Start Family Show episode. I hope you are feeling empowered and motivated and inspired. Now is a great time to head to freshstartfamilyonline.com/firm and kind to grab the Firm and Kind Parenting Blueprint, our $27 mini course that will teach you our easy to implement yet magical in terms of results 4-step process to setting strong limits and sticking to them with consistency. Enjoy, and I'll see you in the next episode. Hooray! You made it to the end of a Fresh Start Family Show episode. Thank you so much for being here. If you have a quick second, make sure you hit subscribe to our show so you can be updated when our new episodes drop. I will see you back soon for the next episode.